Viewport rig selection. Well, first off, what we're not going to do to select the rig is over here in the outliner. Do not use the outliner to select that rig. So if this outliner is open, just close this because this is not how you're going to select your rig. If you select the rig using the outliner, you could run into some troubles. So do not use this. So let's make sure we close that. So how do you select a rig? Well, we're going to do that in the viewport, and we're going to be selecting control curves on a rig. We're not actually selecting the geometry of the rig. We're actually selecting control curves that are on the rig, and we're going to do this in any one of the viewports. Now, there are 4 different viewports that we can be in, and any one of these we can actually select those control curves that are on the rig. Because when you're animating a rig, you're actually not animating the geometry. You are moving, manipulating the control curves and keying those in the timeline. So on these 3 rigs in particular, those control curves are these little yellow lines that you see on these rigs. Now, they look like lines from this particular viewport. If I go to a top viewport, you'll see that they're actually not a line, it's a circle that's going around that. It's a NURBS curve. And you can turn them on or off. If you're doing a play blast, you would turn them off by going to show, and then you would turn off those NURBS curves and they would go away. But when we're trying to animate, we want them. So we want to see those when we're animating. So I turn that back on. And we also want to select them as well. So an easy selection is just to left mouse button click on the actual controller itself. And this could be done at any part on that controller, just left click on it. Again, and not selecting the rig. You can see when I try to select the rig, well, I don't get anything. If I select the controller though, on this particular rig, the geometry actually glows. Now that's not normal for every rig, but it kind of on this one does let me know that I have that rig selected. So that is a left click selection on that NURBS curve. Another thing I can do is I can deselect that rig by left mouse button clicking away from that rig, and it'll deselect that object. But if I want to do a marquee select, I can left mouse button hold and then drag over an individual controller. Or I can left mouse button hold and drag over multiple controllers or rigs if I want to have them selected. Now, if I want to, that can be a little worrisome sometimes if there's things behind the rig that you don't want to grab. So sometimes you want to be a little bit more selective. And if that's the case, you can hold the shift button down and then left click on the controllers that you want. And you can also left click to deselect controllers that you don't want. All right. Well, when you select a rig, this is what it enables us to translate that rig or to rotate that rig or many number of things that might be available with those controllers. It depends on the rig, what you might have available. In this case, for these 3 rigs, it's mostly translate and rotate. While scale might be there, we're not actually using that. But there are different kinds of rigs. So, and each rig could have different types of controllers. So let's take a look at another rig that we're going to be using this week. And that's going to be for the Perpetual Bounce project. Now, on this rig, you have 2 controllers. You actually have a controller that is in the middle here. And this is the main controller. This is what we're going to translate that ball with. So when we have this controller selected, you'll be able to translate that ball up and down. And for this project, it is going to be vertical up and down. So it wouldn't be going left and right, but that possibility is there. So it's translate for this project up and down. The other controller we have is the squash and stretch controller. And so if we see if I can select that squash and stretch controller at the top, This is translation based, and wherever I move that, like you can see, I can affect the stretch of that ball or the squash. If I zero that out, all right, if I get it back to where it started, then that ball will be regular again. If I want to move the ball, then I would select the main control at the center, and that's called ball control, and I could translate that up and down. All right. Now, another rig we're going to be using after this rig is the descending energy bounce rig. And the descending energy bounce rig has 3 controllers on it. So this is a little bit different. Now it's actually an extra squash controller. So we have that main controller in the center. And for this project, that main ball control at the center, we can translate it. We're going to be moving it up, down, left, right to kind of key that ball bouncing on a certain path. We're also going to be using the same ball for the obstacle course. Now, when you have that main ball control selected, notice how it looks like every other controller and the ball is selected. And that's really not true. The only thing I've selected right now is the main ball control. I did not have the squash and stretch selected. And you can tell that when that happens, because when I move the ball around, the squash and stretch controllers follow along with me when I'm moving that. Right? If I marquee selected the entire ball and then translated it, notice what happens. Can you guys see that? Actually, the ball seems like it was moving the same way it was before, but notice that I'm moving the ball actually away from that main ball control at the center. All right, so do not select the entire rig on this particular rig and translate it. That's going to cause a problem. So when you want to move this rig, you select the center ball control, and you can move it. You can also rotate it. Right? And if you want to do squash and stretch, well, for this one in particular, wherever the ball is landed on the ground, you're going to use the controller up at the top. And so you'd select that controller, and then you can translate that to give that squash and stretch. And the reason why I wouldn't use the bottom controller for the squash and stretch is because, well, if it's on the ground, touching, let's say, that lower area, I wouldn't want that squash to move up, right? So really, I would use that lower controller if my ball was rotated so that the red was on top, and then I can use that top squash controller. All right, so that is viewport rig selection.